Hello, this is your Sleepless Guy back with a new series of what if there was monsters in the My Hero Academia universe. Now, if you hear that fucking noise in the background, that is my 3D printer working his ass off right now to do some shit for me that might be interesting later down the line. So, don't worry about it too much. But how to explain this backstory is very, very simple. Uh, how it happened was, to explain this most simple way possible, when midoriya was young and the rest, when the quirkless people, like, it was starting to get lower to the point where quirkless people were like 13% of the population was quirkless. uh, the governments around the world started talking about, well, like, do we really need quirkless people to be in the genetic pool? And they were talking about this as if they should try to extinct the quirkless people race. Now, like, the United States was like, absolutely not, we do not need to do this. But Japan was thinking something different. Japan was definitely thinking about exterminating this race because uh, they were having the top tier heroes. At this time, All Might was alive, and a lot of other pro heroes that were going up in Japan were alive at this time. So they were actually thinking about doing that to get maybe better tier heroes or top quality heroes. Obviously, not knowing that All Might was born quirkless. Uh, so what they did was, uh, but like, obviously they couldn't just, like, hide it under the UN. So what they did was they put every quirkless people into a city and put a dome around them, and they put a test chemical, something that they just figured out, and they barely test on animals. They tested on these people and stated that the test went horribly wrong and killed all of the quirkless people, accounting Midoriya as one of those people. Uh, but they didn't. And obviously, doing that made someone who was pro hero, wanted to be a hero, become a monster. Now this goes into Midoriya. So Midoriya, when he was exposed to this chemical, and some people, it was roughly around 2 billion people. Still, it was like, there's like 23 billion people in Japan at that time. Let's state. We don't know directly, but let's state, because it was more time than that, and also more people are moving Japan because of the massive hero and because of UA. So more people in Japan. So let's say 23 billion. Let's say 23 billion. 2 billion of that people, of that 23, is quirkless. Half of that, so almost a billion people died straight away. So like the old, like people with diseases, but some of them, like Midoriya, who were just angry and wanted to live, became a horrible mutated monster, as you see in front. So let me explain Midoriya for you. So Midoriya, the most simplest terms, his abilities are very simple. He is incredibly fast and armored. That's what his entire body is covered in armor. The almost wings, or like wings that you see on the back, is part of his armor, but also are like swords. They're sharp. The red parts are the absolute sharpest. So sharp indeed that they can easily cut through like reinforced steel and armor, and also can cut through like almost an entire city block. Like, can cut through many of them. But he can also strip them off, like completely take them off to go faster and move quicker. He also, the little frill around his neck can be used as a uh, part of his armor as well, because a weak spot of his is his neck. So he can put that around his neck to make the spikes around it his like claws almost, combine them with it. So when Midoriya came here, he was the youngest, and people mutated into different creatures by not by their personality somewhat, but just they mutated differently. Some of them become like slime balls. Some people became like earth beings, like plants almost, and some of them became like wolves and like unhuman like. Uh, most of the people in Japan didn't notice. Some like obviously Inko like mourned his son's death, and so does Sashashi, but like he they they just like they couldn't stop it. And uh, uh surprisingly enough, when the people finally got like the mutants, that's what they called themselves, mutants. But Midoriya didn't. They called them he called them the heroes of the new world, because they looked like monsters, but they had abilities that were like, it's like, why are you calling your, because with the mutation they had a different language, their vocal cords changed, so he's talking to them. He's 7 at this time. He had an epiphany of himself. He says, why do you call yourself monsters or mutants? And he's like, they're like, oh well, because you look like what you already looked inside. We were quirkless before, and now we are massive monsters. Even the old, even the young, even like people who are like maybe even stronger than Mordor understood this. The Midori was talking the complete and utter truth, and he said, "We are not monsters. We might look like monsters, but we are not monsters. We are people, and we will be the heroes." So he doesn't call himself. They start out with calling themselves the hero of the new world, but they change it quite quickly, because Midoriya says we are not heroes, we are outcasts. So that he renames them. They rename themselves the outcast, the people that not even other people wanted. And they started out. They didn't want to be noticed by the Japanese, because the Japanese thought that like all of them were dead. They found bodies. They didn't count, but they found a lot. They found a billion bodies dead on the ground, like half mutations and all that stuff. And they figured out it was a mutation gene. And the rest of the billion people that have mutated and became these monsters went underground, with Midoriya making them. So like they used the sewer system, because uh, the sewer system was empty, to make their tunnel base. And like some of their abilities are massive creatures who are almost like slime monsters that can like tunnel in the ground. So what they did was they started making underground bases, and Midoriya slowly became the leader. With that, people started bringing responsibilities to Midoriya, and Midoriya's like 9 now. It's been like 2 years since the occasion, and he's slowly growing more and more used to this in charge shit. Like this fucking bullshit with him being in charge. He's slowly growing stronger, beginning used to going new body and new shape and new form, going faster, and be able to be using his wings a lot better. They got to the point where they actually had even like a governmental system, putting Midoriya in charge, obviously, but they put a rule of like, if a rule of fight says if you want to be in charge, you have to beat me in battle. And the rule of 5. So if Midoriya is obviously going to be in charge, but there's have to be 5 other people with Midoriya to talk about decisions. And there was 5. Monster. They look like monsters, but there's 5. to talk with Midoriya and figure out what is wrong, and we need because they don't need food. They figured that out early. Their food is the sun, is the like they can grab nutrients from the earth itself. Like they're almost more like plants than actually humans now. They grab nutrients from like the earth itself, and they need like a little bit of water and like some sunlight, and that's it. And they naturally made like structures where they naturally can get sunlight without getting going up to the actual world itself. They're basically like plants. They make their own food in their bodies with natural energy itself, with water, nutrients, and sunlight, or photosynthesis, just a couple of things. And with that, when Midori figured that out, he doesn't have to worry about food storages. He doesn't have to worry about that. So he started making areas to do the stuff that they need to do. And after that, they are going to be fine for a while, like long periods of time. They don't have to worry about food. They don't have to worry about starving. They know they will survive no matter what. If they have sunlight, they're fine. If they have water, they are fine. If they have earth, like natural nutrients from the earth, they are fine. And they slowly started building like almost a small they realized they had to go back up because like they started growing again. And they actually had started having children, like mutated children that are, when they were born like this, they were born as children of the mutation. But they knew they would have to go up again, up to the floor, up to their natural habitat. But they knew the people were not going to want to, look at they still know they look like monsters, even though they don't act like they look like monsters. It's just normal to them now. But Midoriya knew that this is going to get to the point maybe war or maybe like death and destruction. But he doesn't care. So he started bringing people up. Started fixing the city itself to make it look better. And having natural caves going into rooms, into buildings, into sections, so people can still go into the cave and live and do what they normally do, but come up to the ceiling, come up to the surface, and live in a house or something, like a normal house. So Midoriya started just grinding out some stuff, built because the upstairs, it's been 5 years since the occasion. So moss, ground stuff, and the shield is still up, the barrier is still up to keep people out and keep them in. They still don't know in, but they think so. It's a one-way barrier. A one-way barrier is basically anything with a key card can come in, and anyone with a key card can come out, but nothing else. And also they can't come out. So, and they slowly started taking the moss down and making the city grow again with nature. They tore down the buildings themselves after a point where they figured out they don't need the buildings. So they ripped the buildings apart, they ripped the sidewalks out, and they just let the city grow by itself. And that's with them being mutants themselves. A lot of their mutations can help the city grow, vines and all that stuff, and trees. And when they are there for another 5 more years, Midori is 16 right now. He's the leader. He's been the leader since he was 7. People have been listening to him since he was a 7-year-old, and they know his judgment is right. And when the government finally realized something about this, they call it the abandoned city, because no one goes over there and it's just gone. It's covered by a shield, and they think it's just haunted. That trees started to grow, plants started to move, and then after a while, after that, they just left it by. They kind of just left it be. After that many years, it grew into a beautiful jungle. if like the trees in there are thick, massive trees, and like everything in there is like incredibly beautiful, and like they realize like what's been going on in there, as they try to like like heroes were not even noticing this. But slowly enough, the government started realizing, like, hey, this is something's going on here, and that we need to figure this out. And this is when Midoriya was like, new name for Midoriya is usually just Commander. They just call him Commander, and he hates it. He hates it so much. He says, "Shut the fuck up! Don't call me Commander." He's like, "Commander." He's like, "God damn it!" But Midoriya is so used to leading these people into like civilization, when like soldiers and like not technically soldiers, but like people started showing up and started like looking at the place, like ships started flying over. Now Midori, like people are like scared, but Midori was like, no, 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 no. Show them what we are made of, because he's not merciful anymore. He was merciful at the beginning. He's like, oh, we don't want to attack them. Now he knows these people did it on purpose, so we don't care anymore. So like a lot of their abilities are like energy abilities, so they shot the ships down, burning them. Soldiers that ever came in just got killed, slashed to bits. And heroes started noticing after that point, because the government was getting worried, because it didn't matter how many soldiers they put in, how many airships, how many cannons. It didn't matter. They would come back in pieces. Half their soldiers are dead, and most of them said they couldn't like state what was going on in there, because Midoriya were hiding in the trees, were basically making them. And this is where the government had to ask the pro heroes, and particularly like the UA, that's basically their own government system now, to go and help. In particular, All Might, Aizawa, uh, and a couple of the others to come in there and maybe help. As the UA said, yes, we will, but we won't do it your way, we'll do it our way. And this is where we're going to end it off. I hope you guys liked the video. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.